I have a whole backlog of recordings to upload to YouTube. But okay, cool. We're recording.
There is a thing you can do where you can like request recording, and everyone has to like click that they're okay before it starts to record. But maybe that's some like Zoom configuration mastery that we haven't gotten to the level of yet.
Yep. Okay, cool. We're good to go.
All right. So welcome to the Core Devs call. What I thought we'd do today is basically we'll kind of go through everyone on the call that has like an update to give to the rest of the people on the call, and kind of you can give an update on like anything kind of related to the core implementation of Ceramic. All right, so I kind of wanted to kick off because I just today actually had an idea of how to kind of iterate on the document ID specification that we have. So that's not something that has been implemented yet, but we have like a specification that like describes document IDs, and I thought of a way in which we could use it in a more neat way. So let me actually share my screen and show you the specification, what it looks like right now. Let's see if I can find the right one. All right, you should see the doc ID specification, right? Cool. All right, so the way we specify document ID, so doc ID here, is basically we have the multi-base prefix, and that's like the, okay, so that's just the multi-base prefix. Then we have the multi-codec for document ID, and the multi-codec for document ID is preliminary Cirex CE. And then we have a namespace. So the namespace is just the var int. It's like a variable length integer. And we haven't really defined what this namespace is exactly. But we kind of wanted to like use it to describe kind of the network or kind of like, yes, some aspect of like what this is. And then we have used the bytes from the Genesis CID. Right, so this is the current kind of take on doc IDs. So the idea I had like used now before is one thing that would make things more, I think, efficient within the Ceramic implementation is if the namespace actually describes the document type. So that might be like a type 10 link that links from like a blockchain account to a DID, or a tile that's just like a JSON document store. And basically you could see from the document ID which document type it is. And that would like make it easier within the implementation because we know like which document type handler we should use. So that's the basic idea. And we had previously talked about like the namespace kind of saying like, oh, is this like a test net or is it like the live network? And we can still do this with something like, with like that being the doc type, because we can have like a, okay, this is the tile doc type on the test net and it has like this number, and this is the tile doc type on the live network and has this other number. And it basically allows us to kind of say like, basically like a network would specify the different doc types or like, so let's say we have a testnet and the testnet supports like the account link or the type 10 links and the tiles. And that's the only two doc types that it supports. But there's like another testnet that supports like same thing. So like type 10 links, tiles, but it also supports like a verifiable claims doc type that's like a experimental. That's not supported by the other testnet. So then they would specify, that testnet would specify a number for each of those document types. And that's like a configuration that you set into Ceramic when you're kind of configuring it. So yeah, that's basically the idea, and I would love to hear any thoughts on that. Yanko or Senna, I guess. We have been thinking about this before. Does it make sense?
Yep, it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. So basically, like because what we talked about before was just encoding the namespace of the network in the doc ID.
Right.
But basically, what you're also saying now is we encode the doc type.
Yeah. So basically, like the doc type, each doc type would be like, or the doc type encoding would be like specific to like, okay, so let's say we have tile is 12, just random number. And tile is 12 on the live network. So if we get 12, then we know, okay, this document is on the live network and it's the tile. But the tile on the test network might be like 45. And then we see, oh, it's 45, then it's a tile on the test network. So we kind of have this number that indicates the document type and which network the document type is on.
What is the benefit to doing it that way again versus like having the namespace network and the doc type as like two different variables? Is it a concern of length and like size? Because I feel like, I mean, either way, there's trade-offs, right? Like you can either have sort of namespaces separate. The burden that this puts, sort of combining them, that it puts is like now every time you create a new doc type, you need to add a encoding for it or like a codec for it on each network. And so I imagine that like, if we have just a dev net and a main net, that might be fairly simple, but over time, if there become like more subnets with different types of like namespaces for whatever reason, then the burden is like every time a new doc type is created, not only do I need to write the doc type, but now I need to add all these encodings for every single network, which might be more work than just like keeping the concern separate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah, the main thing, like, I don't know how much the size difference would be. Like, it's probably like,
A couple bytes or something.
yeah, extra if we have like a namespace and doc type. I mean, the thing though is like, the thing I'm wondering about is, okay, so if you create like this doc type, like, do you really want everyone to be able to like, I mean, basically, yeah, I guess if your node supports that doc type, they wouldn't really care about like which network that's on. Right. So instead of like, basically, I'm wondering if it makes sense to like limit the, like if you implement a doc type and you spin, like you run it on like a specific testnet, then you know that it won't be available on other testnets until like you add like a new kind of doc type thing there on the like live network. Yeah, maybe it makes more sense to just separate them. It just means that we would need to like maintain two different tables of like what the namespace is, because like I'm thinking that like my guess is that we're not going to have that many namespaces. Like we're going to have two, basically like a testnet and a live network. I don't think that we'll have too many other networks or like namespaces, or like, yeah, like I don't think like that will actually have much more than that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's hard to know. I imagine I'm in agreement. I don't know that there will be so many networks, but it's sort of hard to know. In some ways, it's just probably like, yeah, it's a trade-off of cleanliness versus size, it feels like.
Yeah.
And um, I guess for more future proofing, might prefer keeping them separate. Um, but is there anything else we might need to include in this doc ID? So like you have now we're specifying like the Genesis hash content, which could be unique if you have the random property and the network it's on and the doc type. Might there be other things, Joel, that we've talked about, like, like anchor or like validator set eventually, like, or is that in the Genesis content that could be?
Yeah, I think that should be like in the like metadata of a document, because you might want to change that. And you should be able to dynamically change that. And if we put that in the document ID, that's not changeable.
Yep.
So I would try to avoid that.
What about like I guess that's included in the anchor set, but like we've talked in the past about things like I guess where your document content is backed up, but that should be able to change.
Yeah, for sure.
And what about the chain it's anchored on?
Yeah, I mean, that should be changeable.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, it feels like that is the doc type can never change, and the network it's on, like the namespace, can never change. And so those things feel good to put in the doc ID, or like, yeah, in the.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even if we start using this and we realize, oh, we need something else, then we can just like add in like doc ID v1 or like a v2 of the doc ID. And that would be like a different multi-codec, and then we can change this. And that's like, we can do that in a backwards compatible way.
Okay. I mean, do the extra like 2 characters or whatever like give you any pause for size increase, or no? I think it's fine.
I think it's fine, because I think this namespace is always just going to be like 1 byte. And the doc type might be longer if there's like many different document types registered. But I mean, still, I don't think we're going to go over 2 bytes for that, and at least like anytime soon. So I think it should be fine. We can do some like experiments, but I can update this in the meantime. We can do some experiments as we like implement this.
One question there, like the first like doc ID here with the Genesis CAD bytes is we can always determine the doc type from the Genesis CAD bytes, right?
Yep.
What I'm concerned is if I need to like create a new doc type, for example, I can reserve a bunch of where's the register of the doc types and the codecs for specific doc types?
Yeah, we would need to create a table for that.
And that's kind of like the centralized way of doing that, right? Because I would like to just create a doc type and not to register anywhere my doc type.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see that as a huge concern. Like that table should be like pretty liberally open to anyone to add stuff and claim numbers, I think.
Yep. If I'm a malicious user and if I use like the codec and for other doc type that is not intended to be, and just pollute the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, I think we likely need to be like reasonable about it. Like if it's obvious that someone's like spamming with a bunch of doc types, then we wouldn't allow that. But I'm not concerned with that being a problem, because like it's so easy to detect if someone is like adding a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because like from the Genesis C80 bytes we can like deterministically know, right, the block type.
Yeah. So that was what I was thinking. Like maybe we don't need to include like this would like yeah. So basically the idea is that we wouldn't necessarily need to include the doc type in the Genesis content. But yeah, I'm still open to like dismissing this idea as well, and maybe we just keep namespace and Genesis bytes. That I think that would be fine as well. It's just like it would make it more convenient in the code. Like, oh, this is a tile, so I use this under.
No, you're totally right. Not just more convenient, but definitely easier to handle, because based on the doc ID, you can just filter, index, and do whatever. So I really like this idea. I'm just like thinking the way how someone can just, this is something similar like DNS, right? Just if someone reserves a bunch of, codecs for a bunch of like doc types, and just, who's gonna edit the table? That's kind of like the
Right.
the basic question.
Yeah.
Because like in like codecs and like C80s, just like the when the list the multi-codec it's not changing rapidly, but I assume that like whoever wants to build like, I don't know, like a school project, doc type thingy, it should kind of like register it, or like is there a way to skip that, not to register it, just to use it.
Right. You're basically saying that okay, if we add it to like if you have to like register the doc type, then like you would need to uh, like register it in order to like use it within. I mean, I assume that like use the in the doc type handler, like there it would say like, oh, my doc type ID, my doc type name is tile, my doc type ID is 1, right?
Yep.
So if I want to use like do a school project, then I use like add name, cool doc type, number, or like yeah, index, like whatever, 1, 2, 3, and then yeah, I wouldn't need to register it. But if it's something that I like start using, that start being used, then I would register it, right? So I
Yeah.
think that's not a huge problem.
But if
Maybe
I
one
just,
way is we could have a reserved range of ideas that are just meant for development experimentation, and you can safely use them, but not for production use, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Thanks, awesome. Because like if I register like my cool project with 1, 2, 3, but if it clashes with Paul, used doc type that is 1, 2, 3, then it can kind of like pollute the some tooling, that's based on the codec. So like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
but yeah, what Paul mentioned really makes sense, because we can reserve, but just not to have the like imposter doc type problem, just not to say that I'm a tile doc type, but I'm not a tile doc type. I just mistaken.
But yeah, I'm not like yeah.
It's strictly an optimization, right? Like the doc type is in the Genesis document, so you can always get the doc type from there. So you could just have one doc type which is unset, which means that the implementation always just pulls the doc type from the Genesis record.
Right, but yeah, I mean, you could do that, or like I think if we do this, I would want to remove the doc type from the Genesis record.
To save space.
Yeah, it just seems redundant. But yeah, I'm not hugely concerned with like the polluting either, because like if someone else creates a document, like the worst thing they can do is like create the same document, but that's not like the same Genesis record with the same document type, but then they're not really hurting anything. And if they create like a different Genesis that's like compatible, so let's say we have doc type X as number 1, 2, 3, and I have the legitimate doc type, and like I create my Genesis record, and it's like fine. But someone else like has a different doc type that has the same 1, 2, 3. Then they create like a Genesis record that's compatible with their thing. But like that wouldn't be a problem for me because when I sync that, I wouldn't like sync it because it has a different Genesis record. It's like not colliding. And then like if I want to sync it and see what it is, then like, well, it's not valid, so I just throw it away.
Totally makes sense. I was maybe thinking from other perspective, like thinking about like the whole ecosystem and just like, for example, just doing some metrics on top of it based on doc IDs. Then you should definitely not collide with someone, but me as an observer, I can actually detect more documents that I think they're the same, not the same, but the same doc type, but they're not.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in that sense, it totally makes sense to do the thing that Paul suggested with like a research range for testing.
Yeah, yeah, just an idea, but I really like the proposal.
Yep.
I think we can even, if we have the network namespace byte, we can combine it with that so that the mainnet wouldn't allow the development range. It would be completely valid for the node, and it's can have more security with that.
Right, but then we're kind of almost back to the first iteration where we kind of have used some document IDs that are like the document ID specifies both the kind of namespace, network, and document, right?
Yeah, I still think it's 2 dimensions, right? And it's just like the overlap between this kind of dev range for doc types and the mainnet that is incompatible. Because I think it's good to have it as 2 different concepts, so we can do some very early validation on the doc ID itself. Like if you are asking the user to provide the doc ID for a tile or for something or for whatever, and you can just say like, oh no, it's not right? Or same for mainnet versus testnet, we can say right away like, oh, are you sure this is a document you want to use? It's a testnet one. We are running on mainnet. Right?
Yep. Okay. That sounds good. All right, thanks for all the feedback. That was really good. That's all I have for my update, I believe. Janko, do you want to go next?
Yep. My update is not that interesting, but maybe it is for someone. What I'm working on is just introducing JSDAD library that uses DAC-Jose, and we're kind of like almost finished with the integration. So signing, as was done before, will be done actually by using the DAG JWS, and you should not be concerned with signing. Just JSDAD will do that for you, yeah, more or less integrating a bunch of components and working on yeah, issues while doing integration. So what we released a new version of Identity Wallet as well, JSDAD, and bump IPFS. IPFS is bumped the version to 0.50. And that's awesome because now we have like C80's version 1 and like other interesting utilities there. So yeah, you should expect a new release maybe by the end of the day or on Monday or during the weekend. Yeah. That's
Cool.
Yeah. there are some questions, yeah, feel free to like interrupt me anytime or just ask.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have the actually use Dagose within Ceramic. So that's very nice.
Yeah, yeah, and like a lot of like different like puzzles and just going nicely, and that's really interesting to see.
Cool.
Yeah. Paul, want to go next?
Yeah, I can talk a bit about IDX. So let me share my screen. So yeah, we've gone through a bunch of iterations over what IDX would look like in the implementation, and that's gonna be reflected on the specs, I think, in the coming weeks. And basically where we are at now is that the root index, so used by IDX, is going to be a mapping between a definition to an entry. So the definition itself being a document that is using this shape, where so we have as mandatory field, so we have a name and just for kind of discovery. Also the description and URL, again, that are meant for discovery, so so that users and developers can just go through the definition and from there try to understand, okay, what is the data I can expect from that. And so the other mandatory field would be the schema, which is a doc ID pointing to JSON schema tile stored on Ceramic. And that schema defines the shape of the content that can be mapped to this definition. So that's what would allow kind of a strict data structure between apps, between any kind of user of IDX, just to be sure of, for a given definition, having the shape of the data. And one thing we've added as well here is a config, which is kind of just a map of data that arbitrary data can be added to extend the definition for specific application needs. And so on the other side, so we have the entries, which is going to be an array of tags that are meant more for, again, for discovery. So user and developers can go through the records they have in their index and see what kind of arbitrary tags are associated to these records, and the reference that is going to point to the content itself. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are at that. Where we are now, and with the APIs on IDX kind of reflecting this. So at the high level, we have kind of the has method that can just check, do I have an entry with a given name or doc ID, get, set, adding and removing tags, and removing an entry completely from the root index. So yeah, there are other methods to go a bit lower level, like creating a definition, getting a definition to make sure new documents can be created, matching these schemas and these kind of things. So I just go through, well, a quick example that is I just use as a simple integration test for now. So basically, to run IDX now, what we need is Ceramic, obviously, to interact with the API, and schemas that are going to be the mapping, basically, of known names to the document IDs of the schemas stored on the Ceramic network. So considering we don't have a Ceramic network running now, we don't have, well, a way to access these schemas other than having to create them, right? So that's what this tool does in the IDX schemas library. So that just allows to publish the list of schemas that are defined and used by IDX. But eventually, once the ceramic network is deployed, it wouldn't be needed anymore because this would be provided directly into IDX with the definitions that are needed. And so one thing we can do with IDX, so the references to the definition are really just document IDs, right? And in order to have a simpler way to interact with the content, we can create aliases for this definition. So for example, here we have the test profiles that is just going to map to the definition, the document ID of the definition being created here. And then by providing these definitions to the IDX instance, we can simply interact with the names rather than having to worry about the document IDs themselves. So for example, here we can have an Alice client that is just setting a profile and Bob instantiating with, kind of using the same definitions and just getting Alice profiles using her DID and just to recover the data. So yeah, I guess that's the basics for it for now. There, any question?
No questions. This looks really nice.
Cool.
So a quick question about the name. So you have like human readable names that are different from what the schema might be defined as. Like if it's a basic profile schema, in the definition, you can also have like a different name. Is that right?
Yeah, so for the schemas, well, basically we have two different mappings, right? We have one for the schemas and one for the definitions, because the definition is kind of an instance of a schema. Like we can have one definition that is going to say, oh, it's basic profile, but you can use the basic profile schema for your own app, for a game, for whatever. Also, if you have a similar use case, right, you can create a new definition representing something else at what we call the basic profile, but still using the same schema.
Yep, that makes sense. And so what other metadata are we including in the definition right now? You have name and description. What do you imagine the description being used for?
Well, for example, for us, right, saying basic profile, we can say this is a basic profile as defined by the Ceramic CIP, and the URL pointing to the CIP on the Ceramic website or GitHub repo. And so this way, it's kind of easy to just go through the index and see like, oh, here is the data I have, and explore like what it represents.
Yep. And is there a max length on the description?
Yes.
No, I guess it doesn't matter, right? Because it's not stored directly in the index; it's stored in the definition.
Yeah. So in the IDX schemas repo, so there is a definition, there is a JSON schema for definition. So it's also something, when you create a definition, it has to match the schema, otherwise it won't be accepted, right? And there is max length configured there, mostly out of security. Like it's, from what I was looking at, the JSON schema validator, we are using AJV, which is just setting like, oh, you should set a max length on every field to avoid like crazy like lengths that could be potential security issues or just like major slowdown on getting this data. So basically, yeah, there would be a max length, but it's something we can just define in our specs and reflecting the schema.
Yep. Cool.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. Maybe Alex, do you have an update for us on the Darknet stuff?
Yeah, sure. I haven't done much in the way of implementation this week because we were waiting for the kickoff from Protocol Labs and Ethereum Foundation. But we got confirmation from that this week. So most of what I've done is, I'll just pop a link in chat, but I've put together a simple intro blog post about what the work is going to involve. There we go. And right now I'm just getting started on building a little sort of round trip test, which will put DAG Jose data into IPFS via Golang, read it via TypeScript, and then the other way to make sure that we've got interoperability that way. And it's also just a good way of driving the API design. So I'm working on putting that together now with a kind of straw man version of the Go API, and then I'll have another. We'll come back to that for feedback once I've got it up, next day or two.
Nice. Yeah, very exciting. Can't wait to like use Go IPFS again.
But it's it's a weird one because it's actually using the IPLD prime code base, and then yeah, there's a couple of moving parts to figure out here. But yeah, it's nice to get started. It's fun, very exciting.
Yeah, well, let's hope that the IPFS team gets their shit together and migrates to IPLD prime.
Yep.
Cool. Hey, Jubin, I've seen you've been on the call since the start. Do you have anything to share or that you want to talk about?
Yeah, actually, I'm still learning about what you guys are working on. So that's why I'm staying silent over here. I'm working on a project that is well aligned with the document concepts that you have. So yeah, I'm still learning. And once I figure out when I can make contributions or something like that, I will start talking and I will make the contributions right away. So that's the plan for me.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks. And yeah, if anything is like unclear or if you have like, yeah, any thoughts or questions, just let us know.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Michael, do you have any update for us?
I mean, none beyond the IDX work we've been doing that's like related to core development. Yeah, I mean, most of my work recently has been around articulating and making it easier for people to grasp what ceramic is and all the pieces, which, you know, I think that's more relevant to the community call. So we'll probably share that have more to share there in a week or so. But yeah, I see Sergey just got reconnected. He might have something to share.
Yeah, it looks like his audio is still trying to connect.
Yeah, in the meantime, new ceramic is released, so enjoy.
Nice. All right. Hey, Sergey. I saw you joined like early and then left, but we have been going through like every person and giving an update. So was wondering if you have an update on something you've been working on.
That's kind of surprising. Yeah, really. Well, I'm almost done with the authentication daemon for Filecoin linking. That's one part. The second part, I've started drafting a explanation of, or post for that dynamics or smart document stuff. Well,
Do you have anything that you could share roughly on a high level how it works conceptually? Joel and I were talking about this last week, and we're excited to hear a bit more.
Well, I have a bunch of notes, but it's all in Russian. So if you could read Russian, I'm free to share. Well, seriously, I think I'm gonna kind of post a very drafting of it today, and well, open it up as I share the post. With this regard, well, I'm not sure if it's the right time and place for this, but what's your like plans take on this thing, Michael, Joel?
You mean plan on like
On
adopting?
smart documents, yeah.
So I haven't thought deeply about like what our approach to that should be. Like obviously, like when you open up with documents that kind of allow to run arbitrary code, you kind of open up a lot of attack vectors. So like, I mean, I think it makes sense to have it as like an additional doc type. And like we obviously like can't like we can't stop people from making doc types in ceramic, right? So like I think probably this could be like a first prototype. Like I think longer term, like these types of like dynamic or like doc types that have code is something that we want in the protocol. So I think, yeah, this is likely like a first prototype of what that would look like. And if it becomes like really solid, then I think that's something that we would adopt into the protocol. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, it was an open question, not hidden agenda here. Just interesting, because that notion of smart documents, well, it appeared quite a lot of times in the presentations and well, on meetups. So it was just interesting, like if it's all just work that you could put on a like inside a drawer and forget about it, or because well there is some say mighty entity that works on something similar better and well stuff like that. Like what's the best approach for well to contribute this stuff? Well, apart opening up, because right now it's just words and you haven't seen neither conceptual description nor code, right?
There's
sorry, go ahead, Janko.
Oh, thanks. We had an idea of how we can just implement the prototype, and that we can actually allow people to devs to write arbitrary code. But what we can do is actually we can sandbox. We can execute the code in the sandbox mode, and let's just with some limitations. So the thing is, the question is when to execute a code. So that's, I think, Michael, maybe you want to talk about the hooks and that we talked about earlier. For example, if you want to create a doc type that will be like an aggregator, right? And you need to wait for an event when to aggregate other documents, right? You can just, write a code that does that, but we need to determine the event when to execute that code. And that code can be executed on the client side, or on like a server core side with a couple of limitations, just executed in a sandbox mode. JavaScript that will, where we need just to define what are the inputs and what are the outputs of the of the smart doc type. For example, if the inputs is the state of the M documents and the output is just one state or M other documents, then you should be free to like write any arbitrary code there.
Right. So I think it makes sense. So you brought up hooks, and I think it makes sense to like make the distinction between like what's this hook thing and what's like a code-based document type. So right now in Ceramic, like when you add like apply a record to a document, so like you make some change to the document, then there's a function that based on the doc type takes the update and does some computation and gives back the state of the document. So that's a place where, yeah, we could execute arbitrary code there potentially. And as you mentioned, Janko, you probably in some sandbox, possibly using secure ECMAScript. The other part is hooks. So hooks is basically a system that it's basically like a trigger. So like every time a document has been updated, there's like a trigger for hook, and that document, like we haven't totally specified this. Either you attach hooks to documents, or you kind of specify in the document metadata that this document wants to trigger this and that hook. And I think this latter one makes more sense. Like, okay, so like document A has hook 1, 2, 3. So there's like 3 different hooks. So like whenever it's updated, the node would trigger those hooks if it got it installed, right? So in your ceramic node, you need to like supply the hooks, and like when you update the document is updated, then that hook would be like triggered. Right, so that's those two, and of course a hook might be like execute some code on some remote server or like do something else. Excuse me. But yeah, that's kind of those two distinctions.
Well, if I might take the mic for like a short time before the text, I think that it might be time to, well, so that you guys could see that, and that makes me, well, scared as hell. Well, if I may share the screen now, let's see.
Go for it. Let's do it.
Yeah. So, well, there are like 2 doc types, additional ones. That is plain document, and another one is a rule set. And it's all like good and stuff. Well, with doc types, what's interesting here is that post vessel tile remote, it's like an integration script that actually gets a TypeScript code for that document, that rule set file. Let me open it up. Blah, 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 blah. Well, your TypeScript code, and then well, what it does, well, let me go there. Like as I said before, that stuff mainly handles state transitions. Like you have current state, and you could apply the next state. But the thing is, this like 2-party state is a custom one, so this is generic stuff. So you could, right now, you could actually build anything into that thing. So here is like current state, then there is next state, and then all it does is checks if the signatures for the document, it's like a 2-party signature, two parties document. Oh, I'm nervous as fuck, so let me find the state and shape thing. So like this shape thing is a canonical kind of what I call canonical version of a document that is like DID JSON document for 3ID or whatever key ID. It's something that is readily consumable by the end user. This thing, two-party state, is what's stored right now in doc state, in doc types state in Ceramic. The thing is, those are two kind of separate. You could read that canonical version of the document that is usual DID JSON, and be not concerned with whatever states that got to that document. So rule set, well, for that can apply. It gets the current state, it gets the next, well, next canonical version of the document. And well, for this case of two-party kind of agreement, it checks if signatures are all right for all the parties and sets the new kind of stage. That is either draft or agreement. Basically, all of it is about getting two parties agree on the same number. And then, well, on top of that, because this is just basically a state transition, quite fancy one, quite generic, like you could put here anything with any state and any shape. What's interesting here is that there is a kind of canonical version of the state that for this returns like doc type rule set and current based on this funky state. And the thing that made me question how Ceramic documents handle state right now, this well, need stuff gets whatever and returns the end state. So that rule set is a programmatic, well, kind of external operation on a document state that's currently buried inside doc types in Ceramic. And well, with that, you could actually go to something like, where is it? Where is it? No. Do something like this. First, you kind of create sample rule set file that is actually shared for like all the world, and it is a document itself, so it could be changed by another rule set. And then, well, you create the first payload, then add signatures, and after that, you'll have well, another state of the document, that the rules of the state are encoded in that JavaScript code. So, well, kind of pure node code is not involved. And to handle that, by anchor this rule set. So basically what it does, if you, well, you're surely aware of the, oh, no, it's doc type, yes, rule set, this one. You're surely aware of how Ceramic handles the docs right now. So there is apply function, of course. The thing is, it goes, instead of like usual JavaScript code, it goes through can apply. It goes through effectively this rule set code that is instantiated or created using secure ECMAScript enclave. And then, well, there is next state that is whatever thing that it returns. And for this, rule set can apply. Well, it gets to that right. Well, it's not right with types, but well, compartment with just console imported. You compile it and basically get that rule set. So you could dynamically specify the thing that changes, that governs state transitions for a document. And it lives on IPFS as well. Well, that's, I guess, not clear at all, but still.
Yeah, but I think you kind of showed the most important aspects of it here, and like it's super cool that you kind of so this is like using secure ECMAScript, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. We talked about rule sets before, haven't we?
Yeah, we probably talked about it with Sergey.
Yeah. So no, this is really cool. This is really cool.
Yeah, so this is running in a separate code base now, right? So is there like what were the kind of main limitations that I guess like the ceramic code base is moving pretty quickly and changing a lot. So that might be a reason why kind of you made this in a separate code base, or
Well, it's moving fast. There are some technical things that I couldn't tolerate. It's like on a physical level, something stretching inside my head regarding current code base. So and I couldn't easily change all the doc types of system because it's all too coupled. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Janko.
Thanks. When you say two coupled, on what exactly do you mean?
There is a certain notion of how doc types are expected to work. How they are expected to work, what they represent, how they manage state and things like that. And well, yeah, basically this is it.
This is a really valuable feedback, and maybe we can actually talk more deeply, because I actually saw how the code that you presented can nicely fit in ceramic like it is right now, because more or less you the can apply function, right? I'm just gonna try to like oversimplify it, but you have like the moment in the execution, just the can apply, where you retrieve the rule set as a document, right? And just apply, because you show the example of like a consensus of two parties signing something. So I believe that we can do that. That we could actually integrate something similar in the code right now.
I'm not sure about right now, but well, maybe. I think like maybe last week or so. Well, something changed regarding state management inside documents, but I'll have to kind of dig deeper about it. Actually, I think that, well, it might be, or yeah, I think it might be a good idea to kind of integrate that. I mean, I'm sure it is a good idea to integrate that into Ceramic Node, but I'm really not sure that it could be integrated easily. Because, well, it's different regarding how doc types operate right now. Like there is, when I say coupling, I mean there is a specific notion of state changes, and it includes anchoring. That, well, in my opinion, is like a bit of alien thing to state management. A bit. I see the value of it. Another thing is programming model, how you operate the documents. And the third thing is how you initiate it, the documents and the like the initial state, how it gets. It's a bit different. So if, well, formal enough, well, if it's getting slightly more formal, then it's easy.
Yeah, cool. And this code that you presented, it's open, right? Oh yeah, of course. You shared the link. No, it's not.
Yeah, I shared the link, but I mean, I'm not sure.
The Potter, right?
Yeah, Potter. Actually, I was going to close it down because, well, without explanation of in words, like why the hell have been worked on, it makes little sense.
Cool. Thanks. Really liked it. I'm gonna take a look, definitely. Cool. So, any more inputs? I think, yeah, Michael and Joel had to hop. So, I think, yeah, we're 5 minutes. So, that's it, I think, right?
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. See you.
Yeah.
Cheers.